Welcome to the vlog. It's currently a Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. I'm starting the vlog kind of late because I've just had a slow start to the day, but I am currently going to film a packaging reel and I wanted to show you guys what that looks like. It's a pretty gloomy day, so I normally shoot on days when it's like direct sunlight and when it's just like a lot sunnier, but it's been so gloomy for days now, so I just decided to get some lighting out and film with artificial lighting. I'm trying to put light from like all directions so that I don't get any harsh shadows. I think this is fine, so I've got light coming from this side. Light, I've just put it up so it doesn't give too much direct light, but light coming from over here, and then light coming from over here, and then I'll be filming right here. So hopefully that's enough light. So I'm creating like just another conceptual project, this time a candle brand. So I just made these little candles. I already had these jars. I bought a lot of them for like another project and I just had extra. So I put some soy wax in there and then a little wick as well. And yeah, these are gonna be the little candles. And then I showed on my story like some tests I did with my Cricut. If you don't know what a Cricut is, it's just like a die cutting machine, but you can also do like foiling and embossing, like perforating and stuff like that. So this was my first test with the embossing, as you can see here. Or actually this was a deboss and it just did the outline, which is kind of weird. That's not really like typical of packaging. So then I figured out how to do this. And this one worked out really well. This is what I want to achieve, but it's hard to line it up. I don't know, it's really complicated figuring out how the Cricut works. So I'm going to try to do that right now and film a reel and see how it goes. Winston, what are you doing? So I think I'm going to do I have like 2 candle products that I've created, like 2 different SKUs. One of them is like a morning meditation SKU, like a candle SKU, because it's like the candle's all about like meditation. And then one of them, what did I call it? Cinnamon and clove. Oh, Spice Market. It's like it's just like a general one. So I think the Spice Market I'm going to make brown, and then the morning meditation one I'm going to make gray, just so that they're like clearly distinguished as 2 different SKUs and 2 different scents. So yeah, this is the labels, as you can see here, and then the packaging itself. I've just removed like the inner lines because you obviously don't want the inner lines printed, because you don't want lines on your packaging, obviously. And yeah, so I'm gonna print these out on my Cricut and emboss, and hopefully it all works out good. So I'm about halfway done filming. It's taking me a really long time, and my vlogging camera was actually like not even letting me record. It was saying it was overheating. There was just so many different moving parts filming this, getting the audio, trying to figure out the Cricut, which was like a nightmare to figure out, but this is how it's looking so far. I really like how the embossing turned out. I feel like it just looks really nice. If you're curious as to what my setup is like for when I film these ASMR videos, I just use this camera. It's a Canon EOS RP, and then I use a 50mm lens just to get like a bit of nice bokeh. I don't know, I just feel like the 50mm lens is a very like universal lens, and it just looks good like across the board. And then for the audio, I actually don't film the audio on the camera. I filmed the audio on my phone on the voice memo app. That way I can put the sound recording like close to the source, because if I film the audio just directly on the camera, I feel like it doesn't get those nice crisp ASMR sounds. So I film on the voice memos app on my phone, and then I just clap to like sync it up, and then I line up the audios. So yeah, that's what I do to get like all the crisp sounds. And then what else? Yeah, I use a ring light sometimes, and then this soft box back here if the lighting isn't good. And then yeah, I just edit the video in Premiere. And then a lot of people also ask what paper stock I use, and honestly, it varies so much. As long as you've got like a nice thick cardstock. And yeah, that's just how I do my conceptual packaging design projects. So it's a little while later and I finally finished filming everything. It's a bit of a mess, so I'm gonna clean everything up, upload those video files to my computer, and then I'm probably gonna have some lunch because it's like 4 p.m. and I haven't even eaten lunch yet. So I think I'm gonna like take a little bit of a break, eat some lunch, and then get back to work. To do a little Q&A because I haven't done a Q&A in a while now, and I feel like it's just a lot easier to do them on YouTube because it's just easier to answer the questions like over video as opposed to on stories. So yeah, somebody asked what the pros and cons of doing content creation are, and obviously like I don't do content creation full-time, so I'm not like that well versed in it. I just do it part-time, and then I obviously do freelancing part-time, and then Etsy as well. But I would say the pros are obviously like working for yourself. That's probably the biggest pro, and just like being in charge of your schedule, and like the more you push yourself, I feel like the more money you can make, obviously. But with that, I think the main con for me would be like I don't think I'll ever feel completely confident in my finances and knowing that the money is like coming in, because it does like ebb and flow so much. Sometimes you'll get a really good paying brand collab and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good, and then they keep coming, and then you'll go maybe a few months and you don't get paid really at all. So you have to be really good with your finances and putting money away for those months where money doesn't come in as frequently. So that's definitely a bit stressful, but I think as long as you're good with your finances and can kind of think a few steps ahead, then you'll be fine. And then I also think just like putting yourself online, you're opening yourself up to criticism, which is hard, obviously. I thankfully haven't received like too much criticism on my videos, but occasionally on TikTok, if people don't like what I've done, like for example, I did a video a while back where I did this imaginary project where I rebranded Tropicana, and people really didn't like how the design was executed. And it was just like a project for fun. It wasn't like a serious thing, but I think people took it super seriously, and I got a lot of criticism on that video. I mean, I even had somebody, I remember there was like 1 or 2 comments where people were like, you're a disgrace as a designer, like just crazy stuff. So obviously I don't take it seriously, like, cause I don't think that about myself. I would say that's like number 2. Number 1 is like finances. Number 2 is just like opening yourself up to criticism. Somebody asked me as well, I can't find the comment, but they said, how many clients do you work with a month? And I wouldn't say like it varies month to month, but I would say at any given time, I probably work with, I think some people may find this shocking, but I probably only work very, very max with 3 clients at a time, because for me, as I said, I do a bit of content creation, so some of my income comes from like brand collabs and things like that. Some of my income comes from Etsy, and then some of my income comes from freelancing. So I'm not trying to push the freelancing so heavily, because my ultimate goal would just to be a content creator, like a graphic design content creator full time. That would be like my dream. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to push for instead of pushing the freelance agenda. And so I have probably like very max 3 freelance projects at a time, because as I said, a lot of the time I'm also doing brand collabs and doing Etsy and just doing like personal projects. So between all of that, I've got a lot going on, and I don't want to have too many clients to where I can't give them the time and attention that they need. So like in general, I'd say at any given time I have probably 2 clients. I also believe in quality over quantity in terms of projects. I'd rather work with somebody who wants to do a bigger, larger scale project and have a bigger budget than doing like tons of small one-off projects that just becomes a lot of admin in the long run. So that's kind of how I do it. Somebody asked, what influenced you the most in finding your unique style? And I would say my style, I tried my best when I was in college to not push a style onto myself, because the last thing I wanted was to emulate someone else's style too strongly and then I just become a replica of that person. So in college, I just kind of did a lot of different stuff. I was just kind of exploring and wasn't trying to push a style, and they didn't want us to have a style either, because at the end of the day, graphic designers are meant to be versatile, unless you're a content creator and you have a specific style. But the general graphic designer works with a variety of different clients, a variety of different projects. Maybe they work in a studio, so you need to be versatile and not have a style. So when I was like learning to be a graphic designer, that was the mindset I had, and I think it was super helpful, because I think it's important to learn with an open mind and to not have a style at the start. In saying that, once I began freelancing, I feel like my style really started to show through, because with my following, it was kind of growing and I was posting more, and I think my style just started to evolve. And I would say it was largely influenced by my roots, I guess. When I was younger, I was really into drawing and painting. I just always really liked that kind of tactile experience with painting and drawing, and I think that kind of influenced a lot of my design work, because you'll see it's very like messy, collage arty. It's like got lots of texture, color, like it's very playful and messy, I think, in a lot of my work, and I think that was influenced from me like originally just enjoying painting and drawing and kind of having that messy element to all my work. I never really like my work to be like super refined and perfect. I've never really gravitated towards minimalism or anything. It's just, I don't know, I don't like work that feels too rigid and structured. So yeah, I guess my work just in summary was influenced a lot by just painting and drawing and that messy vibe of painting and drawing. Somebody asked, how do you get over the anxiety of putting yourself out there as a designer? I think for me, I remember at the very beginning, it was very nerve-wracking for me, because I think mainly like I just didn't want my like people who know me in real life to see that kind of stuff, because it is kind of, it sounds shallow, but I think to some extent you have to like not be narcissistic, but just be confident enough in yourself to put yourself out there, and it kind of feels like you're showing yourself off, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being proud of yourself and confident in yourself and showing off your skills and your talents online. You just got to do it over and over and over until you get over that hurdle. I don't think there's really any better advice I can give than just practice and patience, and I'm sure you'll get over it. I think as well, doing things like showing your face on the camera, showing your voice with voiceovers, that kind of stuff, because the last thing you want to do is get yourself in this trap of like, oh, I post content and I'm comfortable posting content, but I never show my face, I never show my voice, and nobody really knows who I am, and nobody's really bonded with me as a person. They just like my work. Because then you've kind of put yourself in this box. You haven't really showed your personality online, and that can be a bit tricky. Somebody asked me how I got into packaging. I studied communication design and specialized in graphic design. And in college, we didn't really learn about packaging. We didn't even really learn about branding, because there was a different pathway that was branding and advertising, and I just did the graphic design pathway. So I actually didn't learn anything about packaging or branding in college. It was all after I graduated, at like internships and jobs and things like that. So for me, I always thought packaging would be kind of fun. When I graduated, I got a job at a company that specializes in branding and packaging. So I just kind of learned packaging on the job. The company that I worked at, it was a really small company, and so I was really lucky because I was able to be like really hands-on and learn a lot of the stuff that at other jobs only like senior designers would do. So I was like a junior designer fresh out of college doing tasks that were like what senior designers would do. And it was a lot of work, but I think it benefited me in the long run, because I was able to learn a lot more about branding and packaging and just like those hands-on things. So yeah, that's how I got into packaging. Somebody said my 3 design hot takes. I would say one of my hot takes is that minimalism does not take more skill than any other style of design. I think with a lot of designers, especially people who really like minimalism, the impression that I've got, especially like working in the industry, is that people think minimalism is the superior design style, or that it takes more skill and a more trained eye for design to execute minimalism successfully. And so I feel like a lot of people think minimalism is like the superior design style, or that, I don't know, people avoid minimalism because they don't know how to do it or whatever. And there's like, when I lived overseas and was working at a design studio, thankfully the design studio I worked at wasn't like that. They were so far from being pretentious. Everyone was very down to earth, and very open-minded, and it wasn't like that at all. But a lot of the design studios in the area were like, they just specialized in minimalism, and it was, to me, it was like a little bit pretentious almost, where it was like, this is the superior design style and nothing else matters. We just want sans serif, black and white, don't even need a cut. And it was just like, there's a time and place for that, but it also can feel so repetitive and so overdone. And I think maximalism takes just as much skill, if anything, maybe more, because you have to understand how to work with experimental fonts, how to work with repetition, patterning, color theory, something that a minimalist might not work with. I guess that's a hot take, I would say, because I know a lot of people would disagree, but that's just how I feel. I feel like maximalism takes just as much skill, if not more skill, than minimalism. Someone asked for marketing tips for a freelance graphic designer. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think the number one tip is social media and putting yourself out there on social media on all the platforms you can. And then just trying, like, I know it sucks because the algorithms always change and there's always different tips and tricks and things like that. But just keeping up with the algorithm. So like for Instagram, for example, making sure you're posting reels, and for TikTok nowadays, I think they're saying follow like a longer format structure, things like that, because it's free marketing. It's such a, like, I think when people neglect Instagram and TikTok and all that, like, I feel like you're really doing yourself a disservice. But I do think regardless, like, even if you're not so-called like blowing up or whatever, I do think it's still just so beneficial, because over time, I think once you learn like what works and what doesn't, and as you grow following slowly but surely, like, it is a huge help, and you can just put out work that you're passionate about. It doesn't need to be real work, and then people will come to you because they want work like that. I think it's also important to be patient and give yourself some grace, and know that you may not obviously become like a hit overnight or anything. It obviously takes a while. Don't be too hard on yourself, and be patient with yourself. Because in time, the views and following will come, I think, with consistency. Anyway, I'm gonna finish up my makeup, and then I think I'm going to work on that hot sauce brand and walk you guys through like a little bit more specifics as to how I'm creating the dye line and like next steps and things like that. So it's about a week later. I got really busy with some client work and just wasn't able to vlog. So I want to finish the vlog today. I'm going to be focusing on creating this hot sauce brand. Basically, I'm creating a hot sauce brand. This is the bottle. It's kind of dusty. I think I might need to get a new one because it's like permanently dusty. I don't know, it's weird. But this is the hot sauce bottle I'm going to use and fill up. So I'm going to design a label for it. And then I'm also going to design a box that it'll come in. But because of the weight of the bottle, I can't just use paper to support it for the box. I need to actually create, like, use cardstock and then wrap it in paper, because obviously you can't print on this and feed this thick box through the printer. So I created this box in the last video, and then I'm gonna wrap it with a dye line. Basically, like, I guess like kind of a matchbox style where the inside slides in and out. Like the bottle will just go in here, that, and then this will slide, so yeah, this will slide in here, and I'm thinking I'll have a little ribbon to pull it out, and it would theoretically sit on the shelf like this, and the front of the pack design would be here, and then you just pull the little ribbon, and then out would come your hot sauce, and this will all be wrapped with like designs and stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory how I did this. I basically just made 4 rectangles and just made sure it was a little bit larger, like it extended a couple mils on each side beyond the bottle. And yeah, so I just cut out 4 sides, 4 panels, glued them together with super glue, and then made a bottom and glued that on. And then I made this a couple mils smaller so that it would slide in here. And this one just has 3 sides and then a top and a bottom. and it just goes in here. So what I'm going to do now is create, because last video I think I created a die line and wrapped it before it was glued, and I realized that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it's not very practical to wrap it before it's glued. I think I should wrap it with the paper after it's glued. So yeah, that's basically the goal. I'm going to create a rough die line, and you'll see what I'm doing. I'm gonna do a little voiceover and explain everything. Hello, this is Sarah coming to you from the future. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just tracing this box that I made onto a US letter size page, 8.5 by 11. And then if it doesn't fit, so obviously there's 3 panels that fit on here, and the 4th panel I had to fit on that other page on the side. But yeah, I'm basically just measuring the whole thing, and then I add little flaps on all the sides, as you can see there, just so it like tapes together properly, because with die lines you just need those little flaps. You'll see how it works later, but yeah, you need that. So yeah, then I'm just cutting it up and making sure that it wraps around the whole box. And then once everything's cut up, I'll just use my ruler to measure what like the size, as you can see here, what like the size of all the boxes are, just so that I can then input those measurements into Illustrator to create like an actual official die line, as you can see here. So yeah, whatever those measurements were, I just basically recreated exactly to a T what I had created with paper, but in Adobe Illustrator, and then I just label everything like outer box, inner box, inside panels, top flap, or whatever you want to call it, just so I know what everything is and where everything goes. And yeah, that's how it looked. Next, I'll create some thumbnail sketches, as you can see here. This just helps me to get my ideas out. You don't have to do this, but I find my ideas are like a little bit more creative when I start with when I start with thumbnail sketches as opposed to designing like directly in Illustrator. And then afterwards I get into fonts and colors and things like that. This process is kind of sped up, but yeah, and then I just start exploring what I want it to look like in a more refined way, just basing it off of those thumbnail sketches essentially. Anyways, that's it for this vlog. I hope you enjoyed. Next vlog I'll probably be finishing up this project, but yeah, that's about it.